In this video, I'll be showing you how to make a detailed drawing from one of your parts, and it'll be from a multi-body part, not from a part created from scratch. So this looks a little bit daunting, but don't be put off. It's not as difficult as it seems. So let me just start from the beginning. I'm going to go to the multi-body part. Okay, so if you've created your part as separate parts, much of this will still apply. But in case you haven't, let me just show you how to proceed on these grounds. Continuing from where I left off in about 2 videos ago, what I've done to this part is that I've actually created a third cutout just to make the molding of these 2 items. Let's just isolate one of them to show you, just to make the molding more doable. So there are no undercuts here. There's an undercut over here, and I've moved this head mounting boss down a little bit so we can get that item out. This typically I'd also cut out and it would be a separate part, but I'm not going to worry about that for now. So let's exit isolate. All right, so I'm going to select from my set of bodies, which I've made into a cut list. I'm going to select this one here. It should be the left casing. All right, so just to reiterate, if I haven't done this already, the way you need to do this to get the drawing right, you need to make that into a separate part. So right click and say insert into new part, and then you'll get this dialog box on the left hand side. You just say okay. If there is a conflict with templates, just say yes, you want to use the existing one. You'll get the opportunity to place your file into a folder. So go to wherever your folder is, and I'm going to overwrite an existing file. So there should be seems not to have done that. That's fine. And so what you're left with is a single body part. It doesn't show it at the moment, but there's no design tree and there are no sketches. That part will update every time you update your multi-body part. So I'm going to close this item because we don't need it open. Actually, we do need that open. What am I saying? Let's open it again because what is going to be instructive is just to see that there is that single part. Now, from here, I'm going to make a drawing from the part. So go to File, Drawing from Part, and I'm going to deliberately place it into a drawing, a title block, a sheet size which is too small. So that's an A3 size, and I'm going to select the front view. Right, this front view is not the view I want, but I'll show you how to change that. And what I've done is I've enabled the placement of new views. So I'll show you how you do that. At the top here, you make sure that the auto start project view is selected, and then you'll be able to place these 3 views. All right, so at the moment you can see the sheet is much too small. What you do is you go across to the properties bar and you right click on sheet format. Hold on a sec while I put my keyboard tracker on. Okay, so keyboard tracker is on so you can see what I'm doing. Right, so right click on sheet format and go to properties, and in the sheet properties bar you should be able to select one of the templates that you've loaded. If you haven't loaded them, ask me, I'll send them to you. Otherwise you can go to only show standard formats. There you'd have to navigate, you'd have to browse and go to wherever your actual standard ones are located. I can give that address to you as well. So at the moment I want to choose one of these. I want to choose, say, the A1 UJ standard block, which I've given to my second years, and apply changes, and there we go. Very easy just to change the size of the sheet. Okay, so these seem to not want to be cooperating. Right, so there are 2 things about this drawing as it currently stands. One is I don't really want this view. So let's change that. Select the view, and then if I update to, say, the back view, which will be my front view, it'll update these other views. So that's one thing. And then these, because these 1, 2, and 3 are derived views, they will update according to what you've done with the primary view. The second thing I don't like is I don't really want this view. I've shown you before how you can manipulate this, but if you do it while it's a derived view, you won't be able to, you'll be able to move it, but you will not be able to actually say, okay, I want that. So when you exit it, it goes back to a view which you don't really want necessarily. Well, I don't want it. So I'm going to just drag in a new view. Any one of these will do. Right, and then in this case, I can now rotate to something that I like and say okay. And what I can also do is I want to show the inside, so I'm going to Control C, click Control V, and then I'm going to manipulate that view. Right, so very handy. I mean, very powerful this is, I think. It does not want to go. It's a little bit slow. Right, something like that. Okay. Right, so I'm going to pull these down. You have to pull, let go. Pull, let go. And then before I proceed, I really do not like having my origins shown, so I'm going to switch the origins off. Okay, and then we will proceed from here. Right, so what I want from here is I want a back view of this, or an inside view of that view there, the front view. What I could do is I could project the view, but I'd have to do 2 views and then delete 1 view. So much easier just to go across and select, let's go to this back view, which I can line up. As you can see, it's lining up with my current views. And let's move these down. So this sheet might be a little bit too small again, but I can adjust that. Let's pull these in. In fact, I think it'll be good enough. So how do we dimension this? The steps that I want you to take is to put in your datums first and then proceed from there. So what is a datum, you may ask? My second years already know what it is. For those who've not heard what a datum is, it's a starting plane, right? It's not a starting point or even a starting line. You've got to think of it as equivalent to a plane, but it's going to appear as a starting line. So it's essentially going to be some plane that you select from which to continually dimension mostly the positions of other items. So let me show you one to start with. We're going to start with this edge here, and then we'll actually proceed to that edge there and to one other one. So under annotations, there's this datum feature, which if you select, you get this little arrow with a letter in it, in a block, which indicates datum. If you click on that and drag it out, you should be able to pull it out of the way, and that indicates your first datum, right? So that's actually not really the best first datum. The first datum should be this line here. The reason I'm choosing this one is because that is that's the parting line for your mold. So that's an obvious place from which to dimension anything, especially if you're talking to toolmakers. So that'll be your second datum. Place that out there. And then the third datum, as you can see, we've got no other straight lines or starting points. The third datum is going to have to be either this cutout here, because that's in the cutout it's an actual circle, or this recess in the rib which holds the motor. Now that's the more natural one because the motor also forms a natural kind of locating feature. It's the starting point or the origin of the entire design. So I'm going to select that line. There are 2 reasons for it. One is because that makes sense. Second, because this is not actually a circle. So if I select it, and let me just show you, I want to put a center mark in, you'll see nothing happens because it's not actually a circle. If, however, I select this point and I say center mark, I'll get the center mark. So that's an absolutely natural datum, just for the horizontal, and also pretty much corresponds with this datum. So it's actually very good. So let me just show you while we're here, what we can do, just to make this more obvious, is instead of letting that just be a little point, use the display attributes under the properties bar and deselect the use document defaults, and instead select extend lines, and you'll see that this extends now to sort of to the ends of the circle, or just beyond the circle. All right, and then you'll see that the vertical line on that mark corresponds with your B datum. So we've got 2 datums for the price of 1. Okay, so I can now extend this line just to visually indicate where my datum cuts across, like that. If I do the same thing in this view, we should be able to select a line. I actually can't use a center line. Let me see. I haven't shown you center line yet, but the center line is a very useful tool. We may be able to use it. I'll just attempt to do this. So for the center line, you need to select a line which you know is the edge of a feature, which definitely sort of is symmetrical around a line, and another one, and there you'll get a center line. So that line there corresponds with this line here. Those are equal. Those are exactly the same line. So let's just extend this. The beauty of this line is you can extend it. Okay, and that'll be my C datum. So we're going to go to datum feature again, and we're going to select that line there. And there we go. We've got our 3 datums. So let's show you what a datum does. It gives you the place, as I've said, to start from and to proceed with positions. But before we can do those, can sort of mark these positions, in this case it's going to be these features, so the mounting bosses, the ribs, just those. So I'm not going to do the ribs at the top. I'm only going to require you to do a few ribs and your mounting bosses. So I'm going to put in center mark. If you haven't already got a center mark, because sometimes according to your settings, you'll get the center marks put in automatically for you. So I don't, but all I'm doing is I'm selecting these circles, and you'll see if I zoom in, there the center marks are. Okay, so with those center marks in place, I can now start dimensioning. So I'm going to select from that line, because that's a datum, to the center line. Now here you need to be careful. If you select the horizontal part of that item, you'll get an angle dimension. Just hit the escape button and hit the vertical part. So you'll get a dimension from that line to that line. All right, so far so good. Why we start with position dimensions is because you need to know where to place these items first. Think of yourself in the workshop. How would you decide to drill a hole in this position? Well, you'd start from the edge of whatever you were doing, and you'd measure out 21 millimeters, 171, and then you would do the same from some sort of other reference point. In this case, that's going to be my other reference point. So that's going to be that dimension there. And then we're going to go upwards from here to that one there. Okay, so that gives us the position at the moment, according to the datums A and C, of these 3 points. Just the positions. That's what we want first. These are the most important dimensions, not the size dimensions, the position dimensions. They're all important, but these are the ones you have to have first, and I look for first. And if you haven't got them, that's where you lose the most marks. Putting size dimensions in is easy. Figuring out how to put your position dimensions in is a little bit harder, and that's where the intelligence comes in. All right, so we need some more position dimensions. I want position dimensions for this set of ribs. And for that to happen, I'm going to put in some center lines. So center line tool again, and I'm going to select 2 lines. And here you can keep selecting lines as you go. So I'm going to put in all of these. Okay, and the reason I'm selecting center lines because that marks the position of the rib, because the way I created the rib is around a center line. And it's also then easier because you only have to dimension one of these ribs as to its root wall thickness once and as to its other features once. So once you've got it, right, so that's not going to pull out. I'm pulling these out just so that they're easier to access when I put in some more position dimensions. Okay, so in a sense, I already have the position of the ribs because of this datum line having been placed in that center point. So I just need now the X dimension. So let's go back to dimensions. Let's go back to our starting point, our datum, put 1 in. And in this case, I'm not worrying too much about how I place these because I'm going to show you a neat trick at the end of this for arranging all your dimensions. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. I kind of already have the datum for the center of this line, because if you go to that point there, that is the same as that line there. So I just need the X dimensions. And now I want to arrange all of these dimensions, so just select all of them. And then right click and say align. And then under align, under the third block, you get auto arrange. If you click on this, you'll see that your dimensions get arranged very neatly. Sometimes not as neatly as you want. You might have to shift a few of them up. Here I'm using the shift button just to select a whole load of them, shift them up. Okay, so I'm looking for this. I'm looking for drawings which are legible, which are arranged, which are organized. If this is just a mess of lines and dimensions and I can't see which one starts at which point and where it ends, I instantly give that a 0. You want marks, make it legible. It's got to be legible. It's you're handing this to a tool maker who is dealing with millions of rands of tooling. You've got to make that tool maker and everyone else's life easy and legible and understand their difficulties. They have to read these drawings. So if you don't make it legible, I don't give you marks. Keep that in mind, please. So far so good. That's as much as I really want as when it comes to putting in the position dimensions. You don't need to dimension the rest of this. This would actually, it's an enormous amount of drawing that you need to do. What you can do is you can put in a few overall dimensions just to indicate that you are concerned about that. So 1 there. We can put 1 here, and if I want to select this point, hold the shift button down. Right, so there we go. Okay, and what you should notice as well, I've organized my dimensions according to the category. So here are all my position dimensions in this view. Here are all my overall dimensions. If you want to put in a few more radii and so forth, I'm not going to be bothered with that. But this is primarily what I'm looking for. So now from here, I need to know what the size dimensions are. And I'll show you what size dimensions are in a moment, although you should be able to guess. In other words, what is the size of this diameter? What is the size of that diameter? What are the sizes of these items? And this view, as we've got it, is not ideal for doing this because when I start placing these, they become not all that legible, and it's very difficult for me to see whether I'm pointing to that line or that line. Which of these two lines am I pointing to? These don't indicate. These are no good. Can you see that? This one's okay, but that one's no good. So I need a much bigger view, and I need a much clearer view of what I'm doing. And to do that, you use section views. Section views are king as far as most people who do drawings are concerned, especially when it comes to this kind of detail. So let's put a section view in. Go to view layout and section view, and there's a lot you can do with section views. I'm just going to show you the basics. You only need to do a very basic section view. You have two basic types of cutting line, the vertical and a horizontal. Then you get an auxiliary that's going from a different point of view, and then you get an aligned view. We're only going to use one of these two, whichever one suits, and we're going to place it in the center, and then you'll see that the actual arrows point. Let's just zoom out. You can see they're pointing in the direction from pointing to the left, and I want to flip direction. I want it to go right. Okay, and then I'm going to pull this out. So there are two things about this view. One is it must be scaled up. If you're doing it for me, it must be scaled up. If it's not scaled up, I'm going to give it 0. So make sure it is at least a 2:1 scale. Okay, so that's number one. At the moment, it's not aligned, or it is aligned to that, but it's obviously not aligned to the edges of the drawing. You can change that by right-clicking and saying alignment, break alignment. And so now I can pull this view down to a more suitable position. Right. So there's my section view. Technically, this is not really a good section view because you should never cut a rib like this. You should never show it. You should actually fill in these lines, those lines there. But because this is from a part file which is derived from a multi-body part, the geometry is not in place to be able to do that. So I'm not going to penalize you if you do it this way. But in this view, I can now figure out all of the size dimensions, and that's where I'm going to put all of my size dimensions. So if I see that you are concerned about putting position dimensions in one view and then size dimensions enlarged in another view, that's going to get you good points. Two things, the second thing about this section view that I don't like is I only wanted to section this bottom half. I don't want this top half. Normally I would, but in this case I don't want it. I just want this bottom half. So I'm going to right click on this line and say edit cutting line, and then I should get in the properties bar the edit sketch button, and if I get to the edit sketch, I can now drag this sketch. You might have to escape because it wants to place another line. Drag it there, and then make sure that you drag the other end of this section line outside of your dimensions so that you don't get interfering arrows. So you say okay, and then you exit the sketch here, and you'll see that the section view line, cutting line, has changed, and you'll also see that the actual section view is now changed as well. Right, so now inside the section view, I need to re-establish what my my datums are, the dati, shall we say, datums. So that's the one. So let's just put in another line. I could do that, or I could just do this trick again. I know that's my datum. I could put in a, where is it? Annotation, center mark. There's the center mark. And instead of adding lines in, I'm just going to extend that, and then I can just mark this. So now this next point you don't need to do again, but I'm going to do it just for explanatory, illustrative purposes. I'm going to copy my two datums and replicate them here just so that I understand what my datums, or that you understand. All right, so Control C, and then Control V, and you'll see it's placed it like that. And then I'm going to do the same for the C. Control C, select the line, Control V. Okay, so I'm just marking that these are my new datums, or not my new datums, but my datums repeated, shall we say. Right, so let's go to the head boss. My brain's not working so well, and see how we'll dimension this. So I'm going to use the datum to dimension a subdatum, which will be this line here, and then from that I'll be able to dimension all of the thicknesses of that item. So let's do that. So I'm going to go from my datum down to this line. That line is my subdatum or secondary datum for a good reason, because that's the point, or that's the plane which will meet the screw boss on the other side. So that's the point from which I want to determine what the gap is between these two. So I'm going to then use that one there. So we won't get into secondary datums at the moment, just understand that they exist and they're legitimate to use. So I'm going to use that to determine the heights of this item. And those look like the only three regarding the top hat that I need, but I do need to know how far from here the bus starts. All right, so far so good. And then I need another secondary datum, which is the position. Remember that I've marked this as to its position, so I need to re-establish that position, and the way I do that is I go to the center line and I select these two. Okay, and there we go, I have a center line. So that there corresponds to, it's slow, to that one there. Okay, so those are equal. And if you've got that in place, and I see that you know what you're doing, that's going to get you very good marks. Because from here, I can now dimension around that position everything that I need to. So that'll be 1, and this should give you a diameter sign. Make sure the diameter sign is in there. If it isn't, you have to just when you click on this, you have to go in here and enter it in from here. So you should be able to, if it's not in place, go into that, scroll down, and you'll see here the diameter symbol, and you put it in. So if it doesn't indicate it, it should, but if it doesn't, make sure you have the diameter symbol in place. Okay, let's do that again. So in this case, we want to go from the bottom, because there's a taper on this, so that there is the second one, and then the last one in this top hat series is that one there, and then one more, which would be this one here. All right, and those are all I need, because everything else is derived as a matter of taper. So it would be daft to put one in here. Those are all the ones that I need. Well, not quite all that we need. We need to know a few more details about these ribs. So I need to know sort of where that width is. What you got to remember here is that we're dimensioning across a center line. This center line is important. It's a symmetry line, so we could put CL there, although it's not a symmetry line for the entire part, so it wouldn't really be legitimate, but you still need to dimension across the center line. And here I need some virtual sharps again, so we go from here to here and put in a point, one virtual sharp, second one, dimension across that width, so from that virtual sharp to that one. And then the last one we need is an angle, so I'm going to go from here to that point, and there we go, 60 degrees, perfect. Okay, and you only put one in because obviously the way this is drawn, it shows that it is equal. And you could now dimension that taper as well. So let's just do that. Just go from here down to there. Select that item, bring it out. Okay, it's a little bit untidy, but I'm not going to worry. If you, I mean, even if you, what you could do here is just to make this simpler, just put a note in. So just go across to annotation note and just click on that and just say taper 2 degrees, so 2, and then if you want to find the symbol, you go across to symbols over here and you select 2 degrees like that, taper 2 degrees. I'd be happy if you did that. You wouldn't have to put the dimension in, although this one here makes more sense. Right. And so I have everything in place. I need one more height here. I need to go from there up to here just to indicate the height of the lip. And then I need a couple more to indicate how far down that rib starts from the datum, and I need to indicate what the radius is here. All right, and at the moment it is pointing, as I like to set mine up, pointing to the item, but in this case I want it to point to the center because I want to indicate that that center is the starting point. All right, and that would be about the sum of it. I mean, that covers everything that I'd want from you to show me that you know how to use location dimensions and size dimensions and datums, those three. I'm going to hop across into, I'm going to add a sheet here. So let's choose a much smaller one. And in this case, I'm going to bring in an item which is symmetrical, just to show you how to dimension an item which is symmetrical. So let's go to View Layout, Model View, and I have made the end cap, this rear cover, into a drawing. It's going to bring it in on the side view. I'm going to change it into the back or the front view. Let's see. Yeah, that one's good enough. Okay, so datums here would be that one there, and then what do we do here? There's no starting point. Well, that's fairly easy. I'll show you, but let's put the primary datum in here. Okay, this might get a little bit messy. If it starts doing that sort of thing, just start it again and select a different line. There you go. All right, and it's got D in place because it's continuing from where I started in the previous session. You can just type in A if you want to start again. It seems not to have done it. A. Say OK. All right, and then our datums will start from A again. So that's the primary datum. This one here, if it were made as a part which I constructed from the beginning, I'd be able to put in a center line using these two lines, 1 and 2. But as you see here, it's not doing it because it's a derived part. But I do have some other geometry which I can use, which is the center mark. So I'm going to select one of these lines, doesn't matter which, and you'll see the center mark appears. Let's go to Document Defaults, Deselected, Extended Lines. So that extends it beyond the bounds of the actual circle. And then these will become my datums. And another important point is this item is very symmetrical around this vertical datum here. So you must indicate then that this is a symmetry center line. To do that, you go to Note, you select this third item here, Add Symbol, click on the very first one. You see how important it is because it's the very first symbol, and place it at the end of your line. Hit the Enter button. You might have to do that twice. Okay, so and escape. So that's the center line, and then we can mark this as a datum as well. So that would be my B datum, and that would be my C datum. So that would be a height. And I'm not going to do the full dimensioning here because what you really need is a section view to show wall thicknesses, and in which you could then dimension things like tapers and so forth. So what I can do is, because I've got a center point, I can indicate that that is a radius of 45. What I need here is to be able to indicate the points where that plane and that plane meet, because fillets are things that you cannot use to position anything, and you should only indicate their size. So select the two lines by holding the Shift button down, go to the Sketch key and put in a point. You will get what's called a virtual sharp. If I do that again, click on a line, shift select the next one, or control shift the next one, putting a virtual shop. Okay, so that indicates the end point of where those two planes would meet. And now anything which has got a symmetry sign, you must dimension across the symmetry line. So do not dimension from there to there. Okay, that's a big no-no. Do not do it. Wrong. Must go from any line of symmetry to another line. Correct. That's correct. Okay. And then we want, from this datum, we want to mark that height. So there we go. I've got both position and size dimensions in this case. And I also need to indicate what the sort of angle is of this. Although, in fact, it's indicated by the fact that that width meeting this radius would give you that kind of angle. So this is almost complete. It just needs to have these edge fillets filled in. I don't know if it's going to do it in this view because it's not going to do it because we are not normal to that view. We need a section view. That's what we need that for. Might be able to do it in this view. I think it's much more likely. Also not, because we're also not normal to. So section view is essential in this case. Okay, so that's how you do anything which is symmetrical. Anything which was inside here which is symmetrical, you must dimension across the center line. Go across the center line, not from the center line. Okay. Thanks for watching.